Well, we're now joined by Labour analyst Andrew Levy. Andrew, a very good afternoon to you. Thanks very much for your time. As is, shall we say, customary, certainly where leaders of the ANC, Cosatu and the SACP are concerned, this day they usually use to talk about the state of their relationship, which is what Cyril Ramaphosa, the head of the president of the ANC, touched on, certainly in the bite that we played. No surprises there, really.
No, none at all. And I think what we've got to do is to remember that the state president and the president of the ANC is first and foremost a politician. And politicians need support from as many constituencies as they can. Today they are addressing the Labour constituency, which is an important one. And of course, they've got to say things which are attractive to them. So, as you say, no surprises there. This is exactly what we would mean him to say. There is some tension, however, between the call for a strong Cosatu, whatever that may mean, and the issue of the budget and job creation. Because unfortunately, there are many issues in our labour market which are working against job creation. And of course, unions, which are notoriously short-term view organizations, and they have to be because of their the members' interests, are not going to want. One of those, for example, is the inflated and bloated public sector wage bill. So there is a tension there.
Well, of course, I mean, it's an issue that a lot of people have been talking about. That counts for about 30% of what we spend. But Cosatu, of course, had its own set of grievances, which we, as we heard from its president, Zingiswa Losi, complaining about municipal workers who are not being paid, complaining about corruption, asking for the government to fix municipalities.
Well, you know, once again, this is nothing new. And let me say, to start with, there's absolutely no excuse for not paying workers their wages, paying it on time and paying it in full. And to expect workers for municipalities who are providing services to everyone who resides in that municipality to do so without their proper compensation and remuneration is ridiculous. So, you know, I think every right-thinking person, a correctly thinking person, would support that. The issue of corruption, however, is not a new one. Government is well aware of it. It's one of the issues which has led to the downgrading of South Africa. It's one of the issues that we know needs to be corrected. And we can rightly say on a day like today, what has government done? And when I look at it, I mean, it seems to me, for example, that the Guptas are sitting very comfortably in Dubai or wherever they happen to be. I'm not sure that many of the most corrupt of the politicians, of the public servants, are not enjoying a workers' day in their comfortable houses as opposed to in a cold cell. So really, I think it's in the interest of Cosatu and government and the municipalities to deal with these things and to find the money which may deflect it from other uses at this stage to pay people their proper salaries. I think that's shocking.
Of course, I mean, a lot of issues were spoken about, including the budget, everyone agreeing, and the ANC has been saying this since last week, that whatever budget gets passed, or gets tabled rather, on the 21st, it should be a budget that looks after the poor and the working class. So I'm going to skip that for a while. But one of the questions that were raised, or that were being asked at that rally, that the president of Cosatu and the president of the ANC addressed, was whether we are building, or they together have built, the kind of Cosatu, the people who, in other words, a Cosatu that is in line with the dreams, the hopes and aspirations of the people who set it up in the first instance. I don't know if that question was answered there, but from where you sit, what would the people who formed Cosatu back in the day say when they look at anything and everything that has happened, especially over the past 30 years that we've been, 31 years or so that we've been a democracy?
Yeah. You know, I think they would be bitterly disappointed. And I know a large number of them, worked with them and negotiated with them and exchanged ideas with them. And if anything, they were people with a vision. They were liberal people who fought against apartheid, who wanted to see transition. And I think if they were to look at what has happened over the last 30 years, they would be bitterly disappointed. And I think that if one looks within the union movement itself, and, you know, one does not want to generalize, but I think there have been many office bearers in many unions who have been dishonest, who have embezzled funds from the workers' pensions, who have lived comfortably with nice watches and nice cars, again, on the money that they have taken. We have a lot of small little unions popping up all over the place, which are not affiliated with Cosatu or SAFTU, and they tend to be the ones which revolve around the cult of the leader. And very often, there are no proper books of account that are kept. The returns that are supposed to be made to the registrar of trade unions are not made. And there's no accounting for the money that they receive from their members. So I think that, you know, if anything, the unions need to clean up. And I think that if one had on the line some of the founding fathers and some of the early workers of all races and of all genders, because Cosatu was above all a multiracial, non-gender, non-sexist organization, they would say somewhere along the line, we have lost the plot.
Just one quick last question, because I can't let you go without having asked this question, because the very same person who asked that question was, of course, Cosatu's president, who, as we all know, got to be in that position because of the internal wrangles that included, among other things, the expulsion of your NUMSAs from Cosatu. And there are a lot of people over the years saying the leaders of Cosatu today should look at themselves and how they weakened the labor movement generally, but Cosatu in particular, and going forward reflect on the kind of future that they would aspire to have, but not exclude themselves from taking responsibility for what has become of what was once a glorious trade union movement.
I think that's absolutely true. And I think that the sort of vision of the founders and the early workers in the union movement was that it should be a grassroots movement driven by grassroots membership on shop floors. And I think we still have wonderful leadership on the shop floors. I think that the shop stewards, the people who work for no reward and often a lot of pressure on behalf of their fellow workers, they need to be saluted. But I think that, as you say, we would all like to see some reflection from the leaders as to what we are and what we should be. And what I would say is that it's not a universal problem. It's not everybody.
Yeah.
There are patches that need to be dealt with. I think it starts with self-reflection. And I think that when the state president talks about a strong Cosatu, I would add to that, I would say a strong Cosatu and a clean Cosatu and a clean union movement that remembers what its mission is, and that is to improve things for its members, not to line their own pockets, would be something that everybody would welcome.
Andrew, let me thank you very much for your time and reflections on this May Day. We will, of course, be bringing you more voices as workers across the country and indeed the world were celebrating Workers' Day.